Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Wobble Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, I think we really need to continue talking about Syria because that's really where the focus of international attention is currently. And it's really quite shocking in many ways. But we obviously had the shocking downfall of the Ba'athist government that has ruled Syria for decades, and the Assad family that has ruled Syria for more than 50 years. But now what we're getting is an absolute free-for-all by the great powers. So we've had Israel that has, I think, conducted some. They say the numbers are vague, but at least there are 350 bombing missions in Syria. Apparently, the media right, well, they're, taking out military targets. They're not taking out military targets. They're just taking out everything that
Everything,
Syria has.
everything.
Is in the possession of Syria. It's a legitimate possession of Syria. They're just destroying it. Airfields, air bases, naval ships and naval yards, factories, research facilities. They're just taking everything out.
Yeah.
Um,
If
Apparently,
you can,
they have a right to do so.
if you see a building on GPS, it's fair game. Take it
Yeah,
out. Okay.
and the United States seems to have no particular objection to it. And then Israel has also seized additional territory. It seized the buffer zone that was supposed to separate the Golan Heights, which Israel has illegally annexed the Golan Heights from Syria proper. So it's seized that, and it's gone beyond even that buffer zone, and it's also seized in Mount Hermon now. So temporary, of course. It's just temporary. You know, that's the U.S. position. It's just temporary. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, occupying the West Bank was only temporary.
temporary. Exactly, exactly. It's going to be resolved really within a matter of days. Then we have the United States conducting its bombing missions, ostensibly attacking ISIS. ISIS is the huge danger. And then, of course, Turkey, with its proxy, because it has several proxies in the fight. It has the HTS. It also has the Syrian National Army, and so it's moved the Syrian National Army to attack Manbij in the eastern part, the northeastern part of Syria, so to push out the Kurds from there. So they're all having a very good time. And then you've got this kind of strange figures who have taken over the government, this Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, they've taken over the government. But this is clearly a failed state. And that was always the goal. I mean, that's my views. It was always the goal to create the chaos. And that is the goal. The whole idea that we're going to go through the pretense that America wants stability, the EU wants stability, we're going to establish, rule of based
Legitimate government,
exactly,
recognizing diversity,
diversity, exactly.
tolerance.
Yeah, a national conversation in which all regions and all sects and all religious confessions all take part. That's what we need, a national conversation.
And the new national anthem of Syria will be Kumbaya. Right.
Kumbaya, exactly. So that was the goal. And of course, when you have a failed state, then you can use the failed state with any way that you want. That's something we can talk about, which is you can use it as a fount of terrorism, because you can then send out your terrorists all over the world to create absolute mayhem and havoc against the states that you don't like, the adversary states, namely Russia and China.
And
Anyway,
these people need work,
and they
George.
need work. Exactly. What's the best way to hate?
I mean, one of the most pathetic things that we are seeing right now is because of the dirty war that started in 2011 and up to the present is that there's preciously little on those Syrian bones, okay, and they're finding that out right now. So you have the Israelis destroying whatever infrastructure remains, and we have to remember that sanctions did work in this case. It impoverished the people, impoverished the state institutions, and most importantly, it impoverished the Syrian army. So there's not much left to pick there apart. I mean, I think the last time we spoke, I called it the Syrian cadaver, and everyone's going to take their. Well, there's not even a pound of flesh, and the reason why I'm bringing that up again is that these people are going to need work. I mean, okay, The place is destroyed. Where's our next meal? Who's running logistics on this here?
Right.
It's descending very quickly
Yep.
into a very dangerous, lethal failed state. And I agree with George completely. Well, then let's just turn it into, a daycare center for terrorists for rent.
Yep.
Okay. And
Yep.
it certainly is going to intimidate regimes all over the middle. Jordan is going to like, Jordan is just as fragile.
Absolutely.
I mean, just because the king there he'll tap dance to the tune of the Israelis doesn't mean that they'll be satisfied. This is the remember the Spring of Nations in 1848. Well, this is the spring of jihad.
Yeah.
Okay, in the middle of winter.
Exactly. There's a spring of jihad because here's money for you to get on with it. This is what happened after Afghanistan, after the fall of Afghanistan. You had this basically a center for terrorism, and then they moved in to Russia, into the Muslim regions of Russia, Chechnya, Dagestan, and everywhere else. And of course, then they moved into China, Xinjiang province, and that's it caused mayhem there. And of course now they also have Iran because Iran is clearly in America's crosshairs, and America is going to make life as difficult as possible for Iran. I think they're going to foster all kinds of separatist, sectarian movements within Iran. I mean, Iran is a very diverse country. I mean, the Persians are, the titular nations, but there are Turks there are Arabs, there are Azeris, Kurds. You can Balukis, you can just foster separatism there, and then you can do what I think the Americans did in Syria. Said, hey, there's an ISIS problem in Iran. We need to bomb these regions because ISIS is thriving. The Iranian government doesn't seem to be able or willing to deal with the ISIS problem. So we're going to have to deal with the ISIS problem in Iran. And I think, and then they're going to try this. They're going to do the Syria routine with Iran, just gradually, bit by bit, take it
Yeah, I
apart.
mean, it's an interesting turn of phrase is that so Al Qaeda has been domesticated, but we still have an ISIS problem. They're going to play that, and a lot of people will buy it. Okay, but what in toto, this is okay. Not only did this happen faster than anyone could have imagined. I mean, even Erdogan must have been like,
Right,
"I just thought we'd get Aleppo out of this." Okay,
right,
didn't think the whole thing was going to collapse,
right.
and now you got everybody eyeing the other guy because
Yeah,
everybody sees this as an opportunity to extend not only their interests but their geographical interests. Okay, it's only a matter of time, but we can actually be more specific. It's a matter of hours before the U.S. and Turkey are going to start butting heads really, really hard because Erdogan, the way he thinks, so, he's the new sultan. It's neo Ottomanism. I got the wind to my back, and then all of a sudden, this onslaught using N to S, Aleppo and all of that. And well, be careful what you wish for because when the breakthrough came in, the United States say, we'll take it
right,
from here.
right. No, I
Thank
think
you
I think
very much. Yeah, it's already started. Okay.
yeah, no, I think that's right. I think the Americans will kind of create this kind of Kurdish entity. They're not going to give them statehood because that's just too provocative to create formal statehood. I mean, they didn't do it even in Iraq. They didn't give them a Kurdistan in Iraq. Um, and I think what the Americans are going to do, I think they're going to really take nice big chunks out of Syria, and they'll be for the purpose of creating a vast military infrastructure. As I said last time, I think they're eyeing the Russian bases in the Mediterranean. That's a nice chunk of change there. You've got an air base. You've got the Tartus naval base, but America already has military bases in the east of the country. So they're going to keep that and then basically try to, create a kind of some sort of a land bridge between these
Corridor.
military
Yeah. I
bases.
mean, George and I have discussed about the future of the Russian port and air base. I, is it worth? Is it of utmost importance to the United States? They have military bases all over the place. It will be the humiliation of the Russians, is what they will
Exactly.
want.
That's the most
That's what
important
they
part.
will
Yeah,
want.
absolutely. I absolutely
Humiliation.
agree. Yeah. Yeah.
And as we speak right now, I mean, I've been going through the thick of it. Most of what's being written about Syria right now is just different forms of propaganda and garbage and lies. But if you put your nose to the grindstone, you're going to get some very interesting observations from some very smart people that haven't always been right. And as I said to George, it's egg on a lot of faces right now. Okay, but um, uh, you know the there's no possibility because of all of the various interests involved that there's any kind of form of stability will be accepted because chaos is the currency of geopolitical advantage within Syria. The more chaos there is, the more you have an opportunity to succeed, to have your goals come to fruition. And if everybody's playing that game, George, then Europe, too bad you maybe you need Angela Merkel back, okay? Because there's going to start being waves again, and to the point where obviously because it isn't the same level of destruction, but they want to Gazaize many parts of Syria, making it uninhabitable, okay?
Oh,
Because
yeah,
it's a game of denial. If I can't have it, then no one can have it.
right,
You can't have it.
right. No, I think that's right, and that's why so much of this commentary that I read is so beside the point. You say, oh well, they're going to have so many economic problems. Who's going to take care of Syria? Well, what the hell does any of that matter? I mean, you saw what happened. We've seen what happens in Gaza. Israel creates absolute chaos, destruction, devastation. So, Israel is not going to pay foot the bill for this. They're not going to pay for a reconstruction. Somebody else will have to pay for the reconstruction, and there isn't any money, so it'll just be left as a complete basket case and a total, of a region of destroyed buildings and destroyed lives. And that's what's going to happen in Syria. Sure, let the World Bank come in. Let them put, throw some money around. I don't think they will. Or let the NGOs come in. Okay, fine. You want to go play around? Fine, go ahead. The Americans don't care as long as their bases are taken care of. Their strip of land is taken care of. Israel also, as long as they're taken care of, they don't care what kind of a mess there is in the rest of the country.
And also, and top of it, George, they've already moved on. Iran's next. I mean, Syria's a done deal. Okay, you can pick at the bones all you want. Okay, that's fine. Okay, and they have the U.S. and Turkey and Israel. Everybody has their surrogates right now. It's prom night in Syria for these people, but the U.S. and Israel saying let's change direction now. Now we go for the prize. The
exactly.
prize.
Exactly.
And I think it's going on as we speak right now. Okay. The obvious outcome will be that Russia and Iran will move closer together. Well, yeah, they might, but it's not going to stop the aggression against Iran because and I think Russia and Iran will continue to develop their relations. I don't want to qualify it right now, but that's what they want. They want to have Russia in the sights as well.
Right.
Okay. I mean, so much of this sugarcoating just really it's creepy. It's
Right.
creepy, George.
Right. No, I absolutely think, and I think the West, particularly the United States and Great Britain, have become very good at destroying states. And you can see, all of the things that they're going to do in Iran. I think they're going to foster all these separatist, sectarian movements. Try to fuel nationalist agitation against Tehran, and then they're going to, try to operate with the sort of the liberals who live in Tehran, many of whom have spent time in the West. Hey, why don't we have some demonstrations in Tehran? Women taking off their hijabs, and hey, we don't want to wear these hijabs anymore. Iran is already thoroughly penetrated. I mean, clearly, Mossad, CIA have thoroughly penetrated Iran. So I'm sure there will soon be all kinds of demonstrations. Women's rights demonstrations in Iran. Plus, there's going to be these nationalist sectarian movements, and then they're going to infiltrate these various terrorists coming from Syria into Iran. So suddenly there'll be terrorist incidents. And then you move on to the next thing, which is America starts bombing parts of Iran, saying, hey, you've got ISIS, you've got an ISIS problem that you're not capable of dealing with.
And if this were to come to pass, and I think there's a great likelihood that it will, is that, well, Syria has been freed. There's a
Yes.
demonstration effect right now.
Right.
We've got the wind to our back. Okay, they're on the back foot. Okay, it's time. And anyway, as Israel continues to have to deal, I mean, they cannot really claim any victories until Damascus fell. I think that even they were astounded by it. Well,
Right.
how could our lucky fortune right
Yes.
here? But for it to you know destroying Syria, it's kind of like getting third place. I mean, okay, I'll take the win, but the win is the axis of resist.
That's the big
That
win.
is the ribbon that you want. That's the
That's it.
blue ribbon you
That's right.
want. You,
That's
you don't, the white ribbon. Okay, well, okay, I'll put it on the mantle, but
right.
it's not what we wanted.
That's right. That's the big win. You've destroyed the axis of resistance. You've thoroughly weakened and demoralized Hezbollah. This is now your opportunity to make your move against Iran. And let's remember, the United States has been smarting over the loss of Iran. I mean, it was a painful event in 1979, and they wanted to get it back for a long time. And they've been brooding
You
about this
remember?
for 45 years.
Do you remember what Gromyko, the Soviet foreign minister, had to say when the Shah fell? He gleefully said, "There's a gaping hole in American foreign policy." He was, and Gromyko was, he was called Mr. Niet. He never smiled. He was gloomy. He was, really kind of grumpy all the time. And then, when the Shah fell, the first time ever in recorded history, Gromyko smiled from ear to ear.
That's right. That's right. No, that's exactly right. But it so happened, of course, is that it wasn't such great news for the Soviet Union because they don't really want Islamic fundamentalism
Well,
as a
but that
neighbor.
was, yeah, I think that was just coming into.
Right.
I actually, it's interesting you mentioned that because I asked a number of people here, was there even the conceptualization of radical Islamic fundamentalism and stuff like that. And the word is that it was there was an inkling of it, but we didn't use those terms that we use today. So yeah, you always have to be careful what you
Big
wish.
careful what you wish for. But in the case of the Soviet Union, of course, they had their hopes on Iran's very powerful Communist Party, the Tudeh Party, and so they were obviously thinking, well, the Shah falls, Tudeh will take over, and it was touch and go. It wasn't immediately obvious that the Islamists would take over, but basically the Islamists were able to defeat Tudeh quite easily.
Wait, George, you remember that time? I remember it too. I mean, you know, trying to understand. I mean, because of the way that we're educated. I mean, Western education trains you, indoctrinates you to be a liberal from the get-go.
Right.
From the get-go.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so for us, why do they want to go back to religion? I mean, Western audiences has found it just astounding. And the drab clothing and all that, because you can say a lot of things about the Shah, and I don't have anything good to say, but he was a smart dresser. Okay, he looked like a Western man, didn't he?
I think so. And he had a beautiful wife. They all have beautiful
Yeah,
wives.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
big hair too, big
yeah, yeah,
hair.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Assad also had a beautiful wife, so that goes with the territory. And again, beautiful Western-looking wife. Well, that's a very good question, and that really, it raises the question as to how did this come about? That Islam really wasn't seen at the start of the 20th century. Nobody really thought this is the coming thing. This is the way of the world.
Well, and particularly that gave a really strong impetus to the Zionist project
Right,
because the perceived backwardness of Arab communities, because at the turn of the 20th century we really didn't have Arab countries,
right,
okay,
right.
and then you've mentioned it a number of times in the past is that they to supplant and
Yes,
displace Arab nationalism. Let them have the mosque. Let them go pray.
that's
Okay,
the
that's
key.
what they want to do.
Right,
Okay. And that
right,
was obviously thought is retrograde.
right,
They never could have imagined that it would be a lightning rod
right,
that would be transnational,
right.
across communities. They had no idea what they were unleashing. And of course, the I think the simple antecedent, you go back to Brzezinski's, support of the Mujahideen and all that. It's a lot more complicated than that because it goes across country. I mean, like you talked about Nasser the last time we spoke, okay, no, let him have the mosque with none of this nationalism stuff because
Right.
that goes transnational. The Syrians and the Egyptians were one country once,
Yes.
okay?
I absolutely I think the Western powers, starting with the British, they were the imperial power in the Middle East, starting with World War One. They were fueling Islam. They were afraid of Arab nationalism, and they kept fueling Islam, and they thought that Islam really wouldn't be such a problem, because they were allowing the Jews to come in and settle there. They thought that basically Islam would be able to would have a better relations with the Jews. They have a common Abrahamic faith and whatever. But it often blew up in their faces. But nonetheless, they pursued that policy. I mean, the guy, the Mufti of Jerusalem, who everybody hates, and then he eventually kind of collaborated with Nazi Germany. But it was the British who appointed. It was the Mufti of Jerusalem. He was a young guy because, hey, he's an Islamist, he's a religious teacher. Better him than some nasty Arab
Well,
nationalist.
it might have worked. I mean, nominally speaking, and this goes against the entire narrative of the West, is that, well, Jews and Muslims more or less got along with each other all through the region. Okay,
Right.
there were flare-ups here and there, but for the most part, they did live together. The
Yeah.
problem is that the Jews became Zionist, and that changes the equation
Right.
completely, okay? Because the Zionist project was at the expense of Arabs, okay? And because you couldn't have Arab nationalism was frowned upon and even snuffed out. Well, Islam would take care of it for them, and maybe they should have just let the nationalism thing play
Right.
out, okay?
Right. Right. But at the same time, in the heyday of Arab nationalism, that was at the time. That was when the Arabs actually formed a united front against Israel. It's now hard to believe, 67, 73, there was a united Arab front. They all went to war against Israel. They all declared war against Israel, backing Egypt, 67, 73, backing Syria, backing Iraq, backing Jordan. Everybody was in on it. I mean, they didn't fight terribly well, but at the same time, it was a united front. I mean, that's all gone. I mean, there's none of that any longer. I mean, Saudi Arabia again was very much cultivated by the Americans. I mean, it's a big, they're the protectors of Mecca. They're the protectors of the Islamic faith. Well, what have they done? They haven't done anything. I mean, they have huge resources, but they haven't used any of those resources
Oh yeah, but
against
but
Israel.
the Saudis are they rebuked
Rebuked.
rebuked him.
No,
Okay.
so they don't. What all they do is use
How does a rebuke feel on your nose?
exactly. They use
No thumb.
that oil money. They get this huge oil money, and then they buy weapon systems, very sophisticated weapon systems that they don't need at a huge
You have
markup
other
from the United
people
States.
operate for them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what do you need? The most modern fighter aircraft. Who are you going to fight against? I mean, you never do any fighting, and but that's and so ultimately all of that whole Arab nationalism thing was just gone by the wayside. But you can also see that yes, you say in the case of Iran, they went back in time, but they've also shown their limitations. That ultimately now, after 45 years, they are very, very vulnerable. I mean, they haven't really been able to put together any kind of a coalition, a viable coalition, in the way that at least the Arab nationalists for a time were able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't have any teeth. I mean, a month ago, like 3 weeks ago, you were talking about the axis of resistance, its relative strength, its relative weaknesses. Let's have completely moot conversation right now. I
Right,
mean, that's how fast things have changed. And
right,
that's why George and I talked about the last time we convened. If Iran doesn't have a deliverable nuclear weapon now, it's going to have one really, really soon because it's the survival of the revolution that is at the heart of the elite that runs Iran. That must not, Iran can take a beating. It can, it's shown its ability to fight to survive. It did against Iraq with horrific losses. Okay. But its strategy for the Arab world fell flat on its face. Let's be honest. Okay.
Okay. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. But even I mean, obviously, we've talked before. Absolutely, Iran absolutely has to have nuclear weapons, but Iran really has to really do the homework beforehand, because it's not enough to have being able to develop a nuclear bomb. You have to have a number of them, quite a number of them. You need the delivery vehicles. You need quite a lot of delivery vehicles, and you need to distribute them around your country so that when you announce to the world that we now have nuclear weapons, the Americans and the Israelis are actually going to launch a preemptive strike. So you have to absolutely make sure that you've
Well,
distributed all of your nuclear weapons in anticipation of the inevitable strike.
Well, we had our friend Tariq a couple of weeks ago on my program, and he said it. He said that Iran must declare its possession and ability to deliver and to deliver against continental United States.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
that's called deterrence,
It's
everybody.
deterrence.
It's
Yeah.
called deterrence. Now, do I want to see proliferation? No, I absolutely don't. But it's not my call. It's not my existential existence.
Right.
It's in play right now. And North Korea, you're not going to get George and I singing the praises of North Korea. I'm not. But using geopolitical logic, yeah, it needed a weapon to survive.
Yeah.
And Iran is going to have to have that strategy as well, or it will
Exactly.
be destroyed.
Exactly. It needs that strategy, but it needs to be able to um, defend itself from the preemptive attack. Because I think just announcing one day, well, we now have nuclear weapons, because then the Americans and the Israelis are, yeah, we have a good idea where they are. Let's hit them now.
Yeah, well, but that's obviously the nightmare scenario, because the mantra is we will not allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. We've heard this all through
Yep.
our lives, right?
Right.
Okay, but that 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 gray zone of approaching breakout,
Yeah.
approaching announcement, the suspicion that breakout is occurring, suspicion that announcement, that area right there is called the apocalypse.
Exactly. Exactly. And you can be sure, we don't even need to argue about it, they have satellites monitoring Iran all the time. So any suspicious movements anywhere, anything that they say, hey, this is something untoward, this is odd, there's some activity going on here that there wasn't going on before, some military hardware being transferred here, and there's a lot of military movement, anything like that, and they will already have some sort of suspicion. Hey, this is a target. So Iran really has to prepare for the possible preemptive attack. And as you said, that's the U.S. policy. We will not allow Iran to possess nuclear weapons. That's a cardinal principle. Therefore, you can be sure
Well,
they will attack at the moment that Iran makes its announcement.
yeah, but okay, we're going into a complete. It's so blurry, you can't see any shapes or forms right now. But Iran, believing that it is under an attack of an existential nature, it will. I mean, it's the Samson doctrine. Everybody's got one. I mean, if I'm going down, you're coming with me, okay?
Oh, that's right.
And that means the entire Middle East will just be obliterated, okay? And Israel won't be spared, okay?
No, I
So
think that's right.
I mean, that's why this is that apocalyptic. I mean, why not say, hey, why don't we have a denuclearized Middle East? That will no takers? No takers? Okay.
Yeah,
That's the insanity of all of this.
it is, but there's no question. I mean, that's going to be the next stage, and of course, then the issue of terrorism, which the Americans are very, very good at sponsoring. As long as you focus in that direction. You don't unleash. Bin Laden kind of forgot himself. His job was to make life difficult for the Russians. His job was to make life difficult for the Serbs. Suddenly,
And that's how he got into the New York Times.
that's exactly. He was thought to be a good guy. He was, all these reports. Oh yeah,
He was a
yeah.
builder. He was a builder.
Yeah, yeah, he was a builder, and really back in the mid 90s, it was reported that he was in Bosnia, but no one thought it was. Yeah, that was right. The Bosnian Muslims, they should have these people coming in and helping them out. Then later suddenly, oh well, we don't get after 9/11. Well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea to let them all come into Bosnia, right into Europe, and set up home in Europe. But this is what so we've got Russia proper. I think if I was to predict, I think within the next 12 months, we're going to have terrorist incidents inside Russia, all over Russia. Then, of course, you have the stands, who are ostensibly allies of Russia: Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. Again, you've got Muslim populations there. I think there's going to be terrorism there. And then, of course, the big prize, which is China. So whenever countries are dealing with terrorism, they're not able to do anything else. They're focused on that, and that's the point. You just give these people headaches, and you've got a nice pool
Yeah,
of labor to give them a headache.
and to put focus in there on that is that I see no evidence that China uses terrorism,
I
terrorist
see
groups,
none.
political aim. I don't see Russia doing it either. But the US and its Western allies are do it in
Yeah,
spades.
yeah.
In spades. They're good at it,
They're very good
okay?
at it. They're very good at it. They've had a lot of experience of that, and it's a relatively cheap thing to do. I mean, these
They
people,
get a lot of volunteers.
a lot of volunteers. You don't have to pay them that much. You just, hey, you get they don't live on high on the hog. They don't believe in a luxurious lifestyle. So you give them something enough to build some kind of a rudimentary explosive device, which are quite cheap. I mean, it's not hard to build a rudimentary explosive device. I mean, they're suicide bombers, so that's not a problem. So it's quite a cheap way of making life difficult for your supposed adversaries, and that's why I think that this will be the purpose of Syria. We now have a failed state. We have a pool of labor that we can just unleash against our adversaries. But don't for 1 minute try to do this in Europe, and definitely don't do this in the United States, because then we're going to be very unhappy.
Just trying given the West's narrative about change in Syria, we've seen the rebranding of all of these groups here. These groups are hard to pronounce for most Westerners. Okay, they like the initials. It means nothing to them. It just basically these initials are on the good side, right? All right, okay,
Yeah,
right.
the good guy.
I mean, it's a very smart, and I say that, ironically, approach to it because, well, he used to be Al Qaeda, he used to be this, okay, but circumstances. I mean, what I'm getting at is that I'm very curious, these groups, just how much leeway they have, to what degree. I mean, none of these groups that we talk about, they don't seem to have any animosity towards Israel. Well, I mean, wasn't Al Qaeda against Israel? ISIS, they never they only seem to hate other Arabs and Muslims. Okay, they don't seem to. Or if a random Christian is in the way, I
Yeah,
mean, they don't ask questions. Chop, chop,
that's
chop.
yeah. No,
But I
I
mean,
yeah.
how does the West and Israel manage this narrative here? Because for me, it's watching them do acrobatics right
Right,
now. Okay,
right,
but because most Western publics have this like vague idea of what's
right,
going.
right. But this is why it's so interesting, because of course the masterful Israeli propaganda is that somehow we're fighting them. We're fighting these jihadis there in the Middle East, so that our Westerners
You
don't have to.
goy, you
Yeah,
goy.
you goyim, you don't have to. We're doing it for you. We're doing all the heavy lifting for you. And then you have all these creatures like Douglas Murray, coming along. Oh, Israel is fighting, for Western civilization. They're defeating these Islamic extremism. Where's Douglas Murray been during what's happened in Syria? I don't notice him, expressing any concern about, the rise of HTS or, when Jabhat al-Nusra. So he says that Gaza, those people are from Islamic extremists. They're the people we have to defend Western civilization, and that's what Israel is. It pretends to do. Oh yeah, we're
Well, I mean,
fighting.
Douglas Murray. I mean, this is I don't know if it's just a perversion or it's just comical. So it's protecting Western civilization. Well, most people would agree. Most fair-minded people would agree that Christianity is the basis of what we understand to be Western civilization. But as this plays out, there will be no Christians
That's right.
left in the
That's right.
Levant.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
so how is that protecting Western civilization and ideals when the antecedents of that said civilization is being snuffed out without anyone saying anything about it?
right.
I find that very, very odd.
Exactly, exactly. And so, but Douglas Murray and all the rest of them have been reliably anti-Assad. They've been all these years. They've all been reliably coming out with all their denunciations of Assad. Now, we have the sort of Israel, which is sort of pulverizing Syria. Just say, well, we'll take everything out, so there'll be nothing. The entire kind of infrastructure of Syria is just being taken out. I don't hear too much from HTS. They say, hey, you're bombing our country. No way, silence.
Hey, we need that bakery. We need that bakery. Okay. We need that flour storage unit. We need that. Okay.
Yeah,
We don't hear anything like that, do we?
nothing. They're taking out
Hey,
factories.
here are the keys to Damascus. Make yourself at home.
Yes,
And that's it, because that's all you got. That's all you're going to get is the keys to Damascus.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because you're not, anything of value is being destroyed right now.
right. Yes, exactly. So, but we don't hear much from them. There they are. I mean, again, the various Arab states, Gulf states, they do the routine, condemnation. They mean nothing. They devoted all their energies to hating Assad. All those years, and just hating it. They kicked Assad out from the Arab League. Imagine doing that. They actually supported these Islamic terrorists back in 2011. And now, they just make a kind of routine condemnation and say, well, we weren't expecting this. Oh, you weren't? What the
Okay, this is a false binary argument. I was never pro-Assad. I would never say that. I was just wanting to avoid a black flag over Damascus, okay? Because as we'll find out for a very long time, this cauldron that is boiling is not going. You can't turn the flame off right now.
Right,
It's got a life of its own.
right.
Assad, I could care less one way or another. Okay, he's in Moscow right now. I don't care. Would I like to know what he thinks? No. Do I hope that he just disappears? Yep. Okay. I have no interest whatsoever.
No,
Okay. I wanted to avoid exactly what's happening, having a terrorist state in the center of West Asia, the Middle
right,
East, and
right.
that's what we have.
Right.
That's what we
That's right. I mean, I have to say though, um, I mean, obviously I've criticized Russia, on a number of occasions, but in this case, I have to say something nice about Russia. I think it was very decent of them to provide Assad with asylum. I think that was an honorable thing to do. I mean, he had
Yeah,
been
but I think the deal is this is the last page of the chapter, and you're
right.
done.
It's the last page of his chapter, but I'm would imagine. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what his financial circumstances are. Maybe he got some money out, or he has already been salting money away over the years. But he's going to have to be provided with an income. I mean, he's still a relatively young man. He has a young family, so they're going to need some money, and I'm sure the Russians will look after him and to provide him with some
Well,
kind
I mean,
of means for sustenance.
yeah, well, there's a term dacha, which means like country house,
Right.
okay? But it is not, it's more than that. Like so many words in Russian that have an exact equivalent, it doesn't reflect it. I'm sure in the Moscow region, he'll be put up into a very nice dacha, a very comfortable existence. Okay. He's not going to starve everybody.
No,
Okay.
no, no. But he
But,
may also have got taken some money out. I mean, he may well have been
oh,
sent
I'm
away.
sure. Come on.
I
Okay.
mean, if you're president of Syria, I mean, you'd be a bloody fool to leave all the
Oh, come on, George. If
money
you're
in
a
the central bank.
president of Ukraine, of Afghanistan, all these countries, you're dipping in the till. I
Yeah,
mean, you're expected to because you have clients. You have to pay this client, and you have to pay this client. No, it's against the Constitution and the political part of it. It's all nonsense. That's just always nonsense. Okay,
yeah,
you dip. That's why you're in power because you have access to resources and you play it's like in the Roman times. You pay off your clients. Your
right,
clients, you pay them off. They protect you. They knock you on your door and say, "I heard. Did you hear that?"
right,
Okay, yep, that's what
right.
you're for. Okay, so you take care of fisheries. Okay, you take your cut. No, it's the other way around. I want 80%. Well, and no, how does it work? You say a sum. Okay, let's say I want 10 million. And anything beyond 10 million, you keep. That's your
Right.
change. Okay, that's how it works. That's clientism.
Right.
All through it even works in Israel. I bet you.
Right, right, yeah. And I think, I mean, in the case of Assad, I think he will be safe um, for the time being. I mean, it depends how bad the terrorist situation might become, but we don't yet know. But I think for the time being, it's the one place in the world that he is going to be safe. I mean, he absolutely. I mean, I don't think any of the Gulf states would have given him asylum, but even if one of them had, even if Iran had given him asylum, he was not safe in Iran. I mean, he would absolutely be a target. That I think Iran is thoroughly infiltrated. I don't think his
Anybody
security.
safe in Iran?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you have Hamas leaders who get assassinated in Iran, so that it's been thoroughly infiltrated. So this was the one place he could go and feel relatively safe. And Russia does have a long tradition, I think, of helping out its clients. In the case of Najibullah in Afghanistan, I'm not sure exactly whether he wanted to leave Afghanistan or simply was unable to do so, but he was killed in a UN compound in Afghanistan. So, but I don't know. I can't remember whether the Soviets offered him asylum or he didn't want to go or whatever. But he was killed in Afghanistan.
I don't remember. Okay, I remember that he was killed.
Yeah,
Okay.
killed in a UN compound. um,
Anyway, I just have this really strong sense of dread, George. Okay, I mean, when waking up this morning, and I think I think the number of airstrikes from Israel is like at 450 now
yeah.
during and cumulatively up into this moment right now. I mean, they really want to make it uninhabitable, or certainly not have any kind of civilizational level where any kind of resistance can be organized. But you know, that's Israel's very selfish so-called security concerns. But when you have a population in a country that size that is completely defenseless, the appetite of others only
Right.
increases. And so this is going to be a massive, massive humanitarian crisis, and Syria was on its back when this all started.
Right, right. Yeah. So they're taking out factories because I mean, pretty much you can say any factories that's a dual use factory because hey, they might be, I know they're producing, bottled water here,
Yeah,
but they could provide,
yeah. I mean,
plastic explosives.
but George, given the Soviet integrated economy, you would have a plant that was making maybe tanks, and then the factory across the street, which is part of this conglomerate, they do baby food.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, it's that kind of integration here. So I'm making it more sophisticated than it is. If it's a factory and it has 20th century technology, take it out.
Right. Right. No, exactly. And again, because the goal is the chaos, then nobody really cares. I haven't heard anyone condemning Israel's actions in the United States or in Europe, because we're fine. And then, well, who's going to pay for who's going to pay for
Well,
reconstruction?
so George,
Well, no one is. No
the
one's going to pay for the
only
reconstruction.
the only rebuke that's coming out of the United States is against Erdogan. That's the only rebuke. Oh, those are our Kurds. Okay, you leave those Kurds alone.
Right,
Okay, oh,
right.
we're going to sanction you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. No, that's right. I think everyone is being told you have to leave Syria to us. You need to focus on Central Asia. Your job is to make life difficult for the Russians in Central Asia. That's where you need to focus on. Leave Syria to us. I think that's going to be the message to him. But America has a lot of leverage over
Yeah, I mean, look, you guys. Erdogan. You can say to his credit or whatever, he busted in the door, and then the Americans run out in front of the parade.
Yep,
Okay,
that's
and you
it.
got to be really pissed
Right.
off about that. Okay,
Yeah.
we did the muscle, and you steal the parade from us.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But
No,
that
that's the thing. I may obviously inject too much levity sometimes, but that's going to be a nasty business between Turkey and the United States and
right.
Syria.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, but there's so many things that Erdogan wants from the United States. I mean, you've got the F-35 fighter jets, and Americans have said, yeah, we'll let you have that, but you got to first of all, drop the whole S-400 project, stop getting the S-400s from the Russians. So then that will bring you into the F-35 thing. But also, his economy is a basket case. I mean, if he wants any international loans and he wants some kind of a support for Turkey's lira, he's going to need the Americans. So there's a limit to how much he can really confront the United States.
I wonder who actually runs the turkey desk at the State Department. You got to probably have a strong stomach. It's like he's on the phone again. Oh God, what does he want now? Okay, and probably very few that desk managers or whoever is the officer for Turkey. I mean, that must be a really high pressure job because this guy is going to stomp his foot and yell at you until he gets what he wants. Okay, the man
Right.
of the bazaar. Okay, I'm going to have
One
to.
question I want to ask you, and I you could just answer it briefly. Why did the Russians save Erdogan in 2016 from that coup? What was the Russian interest in saving him?
That's a really good question. It's better to know to work with the devil that you know.
Maybe. I mean, relations weren't that good. This was still a year after the time that Turkey shot down a Russian fighter jet. So I don't know why let things play out as they want and let Erdogan fall. I don't know why they did this.
I don't think there's any really good answer to that, okay, other than what maybe the outcome would have been worse than the
Yeah.
status quo. That's my only answer that I could have. And that's very much in line with Russian thinking. Russians don't like, I mean, even in everyday life, um, when they want change, it has to be kind of slow and everybody has to more or less agree. And it doesn't even have to be spoken.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this is the direction that we're going in. And someone that was brought up in the West, I'd say, what's the agenda? Who's going? Who's
Right.
leaving? When are the deadlines for this? And it's always Peter, it will happen.
Right. No,
But
I think I agree. I think they have an aversion to chaos
yep.
because of their history, and so they thought, hey, this will be chaotic in Turkey. But he was never going to be a friend of Russia's. I mean, that was obvious.
No, no, no,
Saved him.
no, but I
He's not
mean,
a friend of Russia's.
again, kind of the mentality here is put off something as long as you can.
Yeah.
Don't decide. And so our tradition is take advantage of the moment and pounce. Okay. Here it's kind of like, let's see how it develops. Okay. Let's not make any radical moves right now because there could be downside that's
Right.
unexpected. I mean, there is kind of an intuitive logic to it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But it doesn't always work with business and HR and stuff like that, which uh, can be very hard to deal with. Anyway, I have to sign off here,
Okay.
George. I mean, I'll see you on Friday. We have a special guest. We're going to keep
Special
our
guest on Friday.
going to keep our
Exactly.
lips tight because things change. But we have
Yeah.
a special guest on Friday. So,
Yeah.
all righty, George. You
Okay.
take care. All
Okay.
right.
So anyway, We have guest on Friday. So, and the dogs always making their life very difficult for us because they just say, "Where's the money?" I'm only in it for the money. That's their line. So, um, remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.